Hey, what's up, everybody? Coming to you today with another What's Next, and this one is on Oscar Valdez, the undefeated WBC Super Featherweight Champion, the new undefeated WBC Super Featherweight Champion at 130 pounds. He's coming off of his by far career best win when he scored a spectacular 10th round knockout and overall beatdown of former number one fighter at 130, Miguel Berchelt. The longtime champion. Berchelt had been champion since January of 2017. So 4 years plus Berchelt had taken hold of 130. And outside of Vasily Lomachenko coming into the division, Berchelt was pretty much your top dog at 130. I had him as my super featherweight of the year a couple times. And, just a disappointing loss. He really got, Eddie Reynoso implemented a fantastic game plan for Oscar Valdez to beat the very good Miguel Berchelt. Valdez, I admit, I was very skeptical on Valdez and how good he really was. He hadn't beaten anybody really that big outside of like Scott Quigg. And, even Scott Quigg was questionable to how good he really was. So, Valdez, the jury was just out, and I felt like prior to this fight, he had kind of been fighting to his competition. Even his previous fight against Jason Valdez, it was he was winning, and he stopped Valdez in the 10th round, but it was a 10-round fight, and Valdez was very much in that fight. That was a really good action fight right there. If I felt that if Valdez was really on the level, then it shouldn't have been that good of a fight right there. It really shouldn't have. So, I was kind of surprised, but I was very surprised at the performance that Valdez was able to turn up against Berchelt. It was just picture perfect. He caught lightning in a bottle. A lot of that has to do with Eddie Reynoso and just timing. Man, his timing was fucking on point against Berchelt. He just was beating Berchelt to the punch, and every time Berchelt tried to steal some momentum, it seemed like he just took the momentum right back from him and would just land big shots and perfectly timed shots. And he really had Berchelt tired in the 10th, and Berchelt right towards the end just stepped into a fantastic right hand that face planted Miguel Berchelt, and Valdez probably has knockout of the year and in contention for upset of the year. And I would definitely give him win of the year so far. So big win right there for Valdez. And now the big question is, what's next for Oscar Valdez following that win over Berchelt? Well, first off, there's been talks. He now is calling out Shakur Stevenson. I'm a little surprised, but not so much. And the reason I'm surprised is I have been very vocal about the fact that Valdez ran from Shakur Stevenson from the featherweight division. Stevenson in 2019 was Valdez's mandatory number one contender. And Valdez, instead of fighting him, decided to move up to 130 instead of fighting Stevenson and making a mandatory against him. Stevenson is very complicated. He has a very complicated style, and he's a great boxer. So he would frustrate the hell out of Valdez, but I felt like Valdez didn't have the confidence that he could beat Stevenson. And, if you're going to avoid a fighter, fine. But I think Valdez, the way he played this with Stevenson, I think he needed to know how good he was by beating a guy like Berchelt, and then now he's ready to step his game and his game plan up against Stevenson, which I have mad respect for that. If he needed to gain that respect by knocking out a guy like Berchelt, who's number one in the division, to believe that he could really beat a Shakur Stevenson, then I'm fine with that. And now he's called him out and said, hey, let's do this. We'll get into that when we talk about Stevenson towards the end. I'm just letting you know what he has been saying, that Stevenson. He's also in optional mode right now. He was the mandatory number 1 contender. He won the title. So he should be in optional mode. He shouldn't have to make a mandatory defense against anybody next, unless he wanted to, of course. So let's run through the top 10 and see what's next for Oscar Valdez following that fantastic fucking win over Miguel Berchelt. So Valdez is my number 1 now. I thought about it. I think he deserves to be number 1 over Gervonta Davis, and I got him there. So let's start with Gervonta Davis. Davis is sitting there at number 2. Is the undefeated WBA super champion. I don't see this fight next for these two guys. This is Top Rank would have to work with, the PBC and Mayweather promotions, and I just don't see that fight happening next. I don't think it's big enough fight for them to have to deal with each other, so I'm going to say no. Number 3, a rematch with Berchelt wouldn't make any sense. Valdez beat him down. Nobody's talking about that yet. I don't believe there was a rematch clause in a contract, so not seeing it. Number 4, Leo Santa Cruz. Now, Santa Cruz has called out Valdez, said it's a perfect style matchup, which I agree, but does Valdez have to fight Santa Cruz? No. And the other thing is, would the PBC and Top Rank even want to try to get together? No, they wouldn't, Maybe the PBC would be more willing now that Valdez is the champion and number 1 because of the style, but Valdez would have to want this fight and Top Rank would have to want this fight, and I think they're going to want to pit Valdez against Shakur Stevenson eventually, and I don't see them wanting to go after somebody that they would have to cross the street for, or the other person would have to cross the street for them. And I just think stylistically it's a great matchup, but it would be a waste of time for Valdez, to be honest, and that would suck. So we'd have to see. Number 5 is Carl Frampton. Excuse me 1 second. Now, Carl Frampton, here's what's interesting about this. Frampton is fighting Jamel Herring next, right? For the WBO title. Now, Shakur Stevenson is the mandatory for that belt. But I wouldn't be surprised if Frampton, I'm picking Frampton to lose to Herring. But if he were to beat Herring, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility, I think he's got a decent shot of winning. If he beats Herring, I could really see Frampton dropping the title and fighting Valdez instead of Shakur Stevenson next. I really could see that. Even though I think, Frampton might want to fight Stevenson because it is a big fight, I think it's more realistic that he would have a better chance of beating Valdez. And if he were to beat Valdez, then him and Stevenson could fight after that to unify belts, because these titles, the WBC and WBO titles, are looking like they are going to end up being unified one way or the other, no doubt. Because if Frampton gives up that belt and allows Stevenson's going to go fight for the vacant title, and he'll probably win it. And then the winner of Frampton and Valdez, if they were to fight, could fight Stevenson to unify belts either way. So that's what I'm saying is, either way, these two titles are probably going to come together. So why wouldn't Frampton, because Valdez might be an easier or a style that is more compatible to his, why wouldn't he take that fight first? I think it's very possible that could happen. Would he want to give up a belt? Maybe not, but after already capturing it and to go after another one, I think Frampton just might do that. So don't hold your breath that if Frampton beats Jamel Herring on the 27th, don't hold your breath that he could fight Oscar Valdez next for the WBC title and avoid Shakur Stevenson completely. So, gotta wait and see, but I do think that's very, very possible right there. So, that's number 5, Carl Frampton. Number 6 is Roger Gutierrez, the WBA regular champion. Now, as much as I would like to see this fight between Valdez and him, I don't think it happens, just simply because the belt that Gutierrez holds is a secondary version of a title. So, plus, I think this is Golden Boy and DAZN having to work with Top Rank, so I don't think they would want to risk that for a secondary title when there's Frampton, Herring, or Shakur Stevenson waiting later on for Valdez. So I'm going to say no. Number 7, Rene Alvarado. He's with Golden Boy. He's coming off a loss. I don't see the two sides coming together, Golden Boy and PBC. I mean, in Top Rank, so I'm going to say no. Number 8, well, I keep passing up Joel Diaz. I did it on Miguel Berchelt, too. Joel Diaz is in my top 4 or 5. I mean, Joseph Diaz, I'm sorry. I don't see the Diaz fight either. He's with Golden Boy. I don't see him fighting Valdez next. So I'm going to say no to that one. Not a bad option, but Valdez, there's no title on the line, so why take that risk when he has other better options waiting for him that could lead to unification bouts? I believe I got number 9. I got Jamel Herring sitting at number 9, the WBO champ. I think Herring is going to beat Carl Frampton, which sets up a unification with, or sets up a mandatory defense for Herring against Shakur Stevenson. But again, like I said with Frampton, I think Valdez is a more beatable option for Jamel Herring, but would Herring want to give up that belt? I think he might, and here's why. Him and Shakur Stevenson, I don't know how many people are going to be interested in that style matchup, one. Plus, Herring's going to come in a sizable underdog. Plus, these two guys are friends, so they might not want to rush to the front of the line to fight each other now. They might want to do it in a unification bout. So if Herring said, fuck it, I'll go after Valdez's title and fight him, and then Stevenson wins the vacant WBO title, that still sets up one of these two guys, Valdez or Herring, to fight Stevenson later on. So I think that fight makes sense. So, definitely think that fight's possible right there between Herring, if he's victorious over Carl Frampton, and Oscar Valdez next for the WBC title. So definitely could see that one happening. And then the tie for 10th, Tevin Farmer. No, why risk it if you're Valdez and fight a guy with his kind of style? Plus, that's DAZN and Matchroom working with Top Rank, so I don't see it. Also, Shakur Stevenson next is not going to happen, in my opinion. I think he wants Stevenson to hold a world title first. So, Herring and Frampton are fighting. If they do not, the winner of that fight, it has to fight Stevenson, and if they don't, Stevenson's probably going to go after the vacant belt. I think if Valdez is going to fight Stevenson, it's going to be the unified belts. I think that's got to be part of it. They want undefeated records and 2 world titles on the line because it's such a difficult matchup. So I think that's why that fight has to get made next. Or not next. They're going to build that fight, which I think is smart. And then finally, Shavkat Rakhimov. I don't see it. I don't know if he still has ties to the PBC, but Rakhimov is going to be fighting Kenichi Ogawa for the vacant IBF title next. So I don't think him and Valdez is going to happen next. I don't see it. So that's the top 10 for what possibly could be next for Oscar Valdez. Now, I'm sorry this video is taking so long, guys, but Valdez, this was a fantastic win and a big win. A lot to go over. But I really think the Shakur Stevenson fight is the fight that he does want eventually to unify belts. I really believe that he has a good chance in terms of the top 10 of fighting the winner of Herring and Frampton, but it would not be to unify belts because the WBO would strip the winner if they decided to fight Valdez, but that would lead eventually to a unification bout for Valdez anyways against Stevenson. Outside of that, he might just get fed a former champ and where he's coming in a heavy favorite while he waits around for Shakur Stevenson, or the 3-way between the winner of Herring and Frampton and whoever fights Stevenson next. So Valdez, I think him and Stevenson could be coming at the end of this year, possibly early 2022. And while he waits around for that, he might just, I don't want to call it a stay busy, but he might get thrown in there against a guy with a name, but no believable chance that he's going to beat Valdez. So that could be on the horizon, or I really think the winner of Herring Frampton gives up the belt and fights him next. Those are the options for Oscar Valdez, the newly crowned WBC Super Featherweight Champion at 130. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.